Our scripture on this evening is Romans chapter 14 and verse number 18. There, I want us to really study the verse and understand this verse so that it can make an impact in our lives and in this new year, as we're talking about worship, as we're talking about our service to God. The understanding of this verse will help us this year to go even deeper and to greater levels in our worship and service to the Lord. As you're turning to Romans chapter 14, again, the verse number is 18 that we will look at. There are certainly lots of things that we want to improve upon, lots of things that we want to do better and be more effective at or more successful, and nothing is wrong with that. In fact, we should always have the goal of doing better at anything that we do. But when we think about our worship and service to God, do we consider what it means to go deeper, to be more, to do more, to offer more? Romans 14 verse 18 says, "For he who serves Christ in these things is acceptable to God and approved by men." For he who serves Christ in these things is acceptable to God and approved by men. In this continued conversation about worship and serving God, I want you to take note of some things that will help us to really unearth what is meant in this passage. I want us to note that worship is three-dimensional. It is inward, it is upward, and it is outward. Again, worship is inward, it is upward, and it is outward. When we talk about worship inwardly, remember we are to worship in spirit and in truth. That means inwardly we need to connect with God, not on a superficial basis, not on the going through our typical traditional worship experiences without any deeper connection. It's not about just checking the boxes. Inwardly, in worshiping, we are transcending or going beyond our simple human experience, not just about what we see around us, not just about what we are accustomed to doing as a matter of routine, but really connecting with God in the innermost part of who I am or who you are. Some would say, how can we have that type of connection? Well, I want you to think about someone that you love. It may be love like between a husband and wife. It may be love between siblings or love between two friends. But there are people that you're close to, that you bond with, and there are people that you can complete their sentences. You all can feel each other. You just know what's on each other's heart. There are times throughout the day you get a sense that something may be wrong and you call and say, "Are you okay?" Well, how did you know? Because you have that kind of bond, that kind of connection. And when we think about that inward dimension of worship, we're talking about being connected in that way so that we are inwardly focused on who God is and connecting with Him so that we are blessed not just by our worship in terms of the acts of worship, but our innermost person is blessed by the connection with God. The second dimension is upward, and that's where we focus, number one, on appreciating who God is. One of the most unfortunate things that happens with us is that we keep thinking about what we want perhaps even what we need. Certainly, there's nothing wrong with asking God for what we need and perhaps what we want. But when we have an upward sense of worship, it is designed to cause us to think what I should be thankful for. Just appreciating being a child of God, appreciating what God has done, appreciating the fact that no matter what we are dealing with, His grace is sustaining us. Worship should not be about what we get all the time. It should be about what does God get. And sometimes He ought to get some appreciation from us. That upward focus on worship is about not only appreciating Him, but it's about considering His attributes. Thinking about just how awesome He is, how wonderful God is. Thinking about how good He has been, the wonders He's done in creation, the wonders He's done in our own lives. Upward focus of worship is about our attitude about God. A thing that hinders worship is we can make our intention in worship about God's attitude toward us. He's demonstrated His attitude toward us at Calvary. How about we focus intentionally and intensely about appreciating Him, thinking of His attributes, and just having an attitude about how good God is just because He's God. And then outwardly, when we worship, it is about our service to others. How can we love God who we do not see and can't love man who we do see? How can we say we serve God, but we won't do anything for the people of God? I want you to notice something interesting as we talk about this in Romans 14 and verse 18. Because in that verse, it talks about things that are acceptable. Some versions may say pleasing to God and approved by men. When we look at this idea of pleasing or acceptable to God, our worship and our service, in order for it to be pleasing, our attitudes and actions must align with God. Think about that for a moment. What type of attitude do we have? Your heart has got to be right with the Lord in order to be pleasing. You can't do the right thing for the wrong reason. You can't have sinister motives. You have to do it because it's the right thing to do, and you're trying to align your attitude and your actions with God. But notice something very interesting in Romans 14:18, and the very last part of the verse where it talks about it's acceptable to God, and then it says approved by men. Now that's an interesting thought, approved by men. Why does God care how men think of us? Yet this verse says that in our serving Christ, it's to be acceptable to God and approved by men. What that simply means is that you earn the respect of others by the sincerity of your worship and your service. You don't have to just tell people you are a Christian. You don't have to beat folks over the head to try to make them interested in what you're sharing about Christianity. Living the example and the calling of Christ in your life will naturally draw people to you. It will make other people take notice. Just as people see hypocrites In church, there are people who see genuine, sincere people who love the Lord. And it will cause you to have the respect of others. It will cause you to draw people, but it will also cause you to draw blessings. See, there's a such thing called favor. We ought not overlook what it means to have favor. I'm going to give you 3 scriptures about favor. I won't have time to read them, but I want you to take note of 3 scriptures about favor. Because favor means a special kind of blessing. Now, see, the sun rises on the just as well as the unjust. But favor is a special category of grace. It's a special category of blessings. And when you have favor, you want favor with God and you want favor with man. And favor will make some stuff happen in your life you can't explain through ordinary means. Favor is that thing that causes you to be blessed in ways that will make your enemies scratch their head and wonder how you got so blessed and why God prepared a table for you in the presence of those enemies. Favor is that thing that will cause people who are trying to be slick and crooked and getting over to wonder how you get so many blessings and you not slick and crooked and trying to get over. Do you know the Bible talks about having favor? Favor is that thing that causes others to do things for you that they don't even know why they're doing it for you. Favor is that thing that when somebody mistreats you over here, 2 other folk will bless you over there. Favor is that thing that when someone takes something from you, someone else will add that plus more to you. 3 examples of favor as we consider this thought is Samuel. In 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 26, the Bible talks about Samuel having favor with God and man. Proverbs chapter 3 and verse number 4, the Bible encourages favor by teaching his young son. Solomon talks about living your life in such a way that you have favor with God and man. In Luke 2, verse 52, the Bible talks about Jesus having favor with God and man. So when we think about our worship and our service to God from Romans 14, verse 18, we want to be acceptable to God and we want to be approved by men, so that we will enjoy blessings like we've never enjoyed before. This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister. All right, I hope that blessed you. 1 Samuel 2, verse 26, Luke 2, 52, and Proverbs 3 and 4. And of course, our main text was Romans 14 and verse number 18.